Welcome. Nice to see you all. Here's that comfortable silence again. It's nice to be able just to relax into oneself. Often I contemplate space and time. Very big topics. But for me, I contemplate how I occupy just a very small space in time. And I feel that there's relevance to that. To understand, really, the only thing that I must manage and take care of is just this small space in time. And if I can effectively do that, then in that effect, I am offering a service to everybody who is occupying a small space in time. The reason why I say that is because my efforts towards managing this space-time in a pristine way offers an ability for another to connect to that, meaning there's less interruption for that other's experience of space in time while we're close together. But in the long term, potentially, without even ever saying anything, they might notice something and begin to manage their own space within time in such a way so that they are influencing positively another. And for me, that seems to be a healthy approach to a lot of the large questions and challenges that we have within one's own personal world, but also on a societal level. So it's one individual at a time who is taking on the responsibility for themselves. So then what does that mean exactly? Well, the good thing is that you know the answer to that question. Within your personal space at any given time, what is it that challenges this equanimity of space? And from that defining of what it is there a possibility that you could do something to minimize that influence? And if it's a yes, is it possible for you then to apply that? The reality is that oftentimes there is a yes. But it gets to the point where we ask the question whether or not we can apply that. And then all of a sudden it switches to no. Cannot. Well, the question then would be, well, why? Why not? And we have to challenge ourselves in such a way that we're still sweet and kind, but at the same time earnest within the reality of the truth. And the truth is that we can always actually apply ourselves to that quality of space, to those simple decisions that will in effect influence you and your immediate surroundings greatly. And to me, that's considered spiritual movement. An individual realizing that actually, yes, they can. Yes, actually, I can. I have that strength, that power, the dexterity to do exactly that. To some extent, control the weather. If it's a rainy day, get an umbrella. It's dry. Something which is a concept within one's mind, an idea, then needs to be put into practice. And within practice, there must be a sustained effort within practice so that it's not stop, start, stop, start. And I'm not saying this because I wish to talk about discipline and sticking to something. I'm talking about something much more simple than that. And that's just how we are developed through habitual patterning that then makes something true and real for us to then carry forward and do in a very simple way. It becomes automatic. So we want sustained effort upon this practice of developing clear equanimity of space for such an extent of time that you no longer need to think about it. The duration of time that it will take for you to get to that place where it becomes second nature is really up to the individual and the quality of effort that they're putting forth. The quality of effort. So that quality that I'm speaking of is how you relate to yourself. As you align with a practice. The softness, the sweetness, the kindness, but at the same time, the grounded discipline. Definitely no longer going these directions. Yes, clearly developing this direction. And then the mind will just naturally go towards what you just said, I no longer want to develop. And then you will just naturally, gently bring it back to the direction that you do wish to develop. And this we can really rest into as being a constant within human development. So as long as we are engaged within this body and alive, there will be something that we will wish to be working on within ourselves. The formula always remains the same. The nuances within that formula may change depending on what it is that you're working with. So meaning the frequency of how many times you must say, no thank you, that's good, and refocus. Or the sensations that you may feel. Because often the deeper we go, the stronger the sensation. And the reason for that is just because it's been around for so long, it's developed so much momentum, so much of a storyline. So then an individual could say, well, it will take me as long as it took to develop the pattern to unwind it. Thank goodness that that's not true, because space-time is nonlinear. So we can collapse time. It can take a fraction of a second to deal with that pattern. More possible, the greater belief you have in your ability to do it, which is the belief in oneself. To cultivate the belief in oneself, I am not prescribing that you do self-talk. I suggest that you make small wins within your relationship with yourself, starting with that which is most tangible, your body and its sensations. The food that you eat, the water that you drink, the company that you keep. This is all creating a trust bond with that deeper part of who you are, that when we do the right thing for ourselves, it sends a message into the cellular structure of the body that has a message which says, win. I've just won. And we do this for the body, but we also do this for our breathing. And I talk about the breath often because it's such a beautiful and important piece to the equation of life. So beautiful that it often gets looked over. You know that kind of beauty that is just so awe-struckingly beautiful that you almost don't even notice it. And a part of that awe-striking beauty is the humbleness, the humility, the soft qualities that make up its body, to the point where we rarely even see it. But notice, and I do say this often, notice when you inhale. What does it feel like? And then when you exhale. And you have to ask yourself the question, earnestly and honestly, how many times do you do that? Noticing your breath like this, its beauty. And as you get your answer, maybe it's a small number. And if it's a small number, well, that's an amazing thing. Because what exists within that number as it grows is a growing experience and a developing sensation associated with your breath. So in the same way as that patterned programming piece that happened so long ago, though had so much momentum to get to this place that it's completely strong, the same thing goes for your breathing. This is important because wherever you breathe into, you're actually giving that something life. So imagine what begins to happen to the structure of one's brain as they're breathing in and out, stimulating their nervous system, and conscious of how beautiful it feels to do something that you do 24 hours a day. And accepting that beauty. That your breathing is a part of who you are. It is very much alive, and it's connected to the self. As this enters into your cellular structure and becomes second nature, this is another win. Now the mind has something to rest into, something that it can take confidence in, something that is known. So this language that we create is challenging to combat the other language which has already been created, which already has a momentum. So my suggestion is to let go of that and allow the mind itself, so not thought, not emotion, not anything that is created, manifested from mind, but the mind itself, allow the mind itself to rest into the experience of the body. And allow that to be a known fact, that your mind is here, inside your body. Your mind is also here, just outside the body. Your mind is truly everywhere. It's a non-local experience. We don't really know where the origin is, but we know that it is everywhere. So if you're looking for something to ground you, it's very challenging to find grounding in a non-local experience. Well, where do you start? Where is this grounding point? There's a high possibility that the mind as itself does not want to be localized. But what the mind needs is the anchor point. A referral system, a feedback loop, so that it is constantly cued with the instruction that it needs in order to make the according image, state, for then this body to live in. How does this then influence the patterns that exist within your mind? Through the ability to enable you as the individual, the observer, the experiencer, to have confidence in the decisions that you're making. So that we no longer go towards that which is not good for us. And we find joy within that which is good for us. And I'm speaking specifically and directly to meditation. What aspects of your mental experience can you simply just no longer work with? And what aspects of your mental experience can you then say, this is true, it's in aligned to that which I'm experiencing from my breath, to that which I am experiencing from my body, and now I can hold space for that. So now you have three working towards one destination. You have three working towards unwinding the pattern of the other, which is no longer needed. Now the fourth piece and the most subtle piece is this dynamic quality of stillness. That's the most subtle of subtle of subtle. And these three, body, breath, mind, actually rest into the quality of stillness itself. So whatever dynamism that we have, whatever dynamic action that we create, its birthplace is nothing. And then from nothing, something occurs. The example of that is best shown within the experience of the mind. In the space of the mind, there is nothing, and then all of a sudden there's something. And then from something, it dissolves back into nothing. So the objective then is to develop your awareness, to begin to recognize the microcosm which exists within the mind. This microcosm is the representative of the whole world worth of experience. A drastic example, but if you ever wonder why there's war, all you have to do is look inside one's own head. In the language that we use, in the decisions that we make. So imagine you make not the best decision and I wish I didn't do that. But you're going to correct it and move on. But now we have the complexity of another. And that other is your other side of the mind saying to you, well, why did you do that? And getting angry with you. But imagine if that is the other, that is the individual who is speaking to you saying, why did you do that? So the training ground to deal with that individual who would come to you on the external is actually found in the internal experience of the mind. The way that one relates to oneself and the parts that make up who they are is going to be ideally the way that then we relate to another. We begin to associate experiences to that of people, to that of things. And that association also has to be in question. Not in a feverish analysis of who I am in relation to everything, but rather a soft respect. To realize, oh, maybe I could do it a different way. And this different is actually good. Change is great. Change put into a conscious arena is called transformation. So we allow ourselves to move through and away from that which is no longer needed, and we amplify that which is good for us. Collapsing this concept of time so that then it happens very quickly. What that means for your meditation is that the meditation is able to retain its peace, its quiet, the pristine equanimity that already exists there. How do we know that? Because eventually you do fall asleep. There is a time where you sit on the couch and there is quiet. When you go sit along a river, there is a moment where you just hear the babbling water. These are all examples of quiet which exists. Peace, equanimity. So if it occurred, even just once, it's there. And believe it or not, you are a part of the decision committee that says, no, I am not going there. And this is not blame, this is encouraging. I'm encouraging to realize that, oh, I am only the one. There's nobody else inside my head. I am the only one. So therefore, I can do this, whatever that is. And I'm not sugarcoating or making sound easy, even though it may sound easy. I'm saying that you may actually be crawling for a while on the floor, as though you're in the middle of a desert, wondering why you took this on. You may sit in quiet and just cry. All these things could happen. You might even say, yeah, I totally agree with this guy. And then as soon as you leave here, you're like, this guy's crazy. Doesn't make any sense. But chances are high it will come back again. This inquiry. Especially when one tries so many different ways and it doesn't quite work. What I'm speaking on is a very tight feedback loop that extends only in the space and time that you're present. That's it. So wherever you are is the feedback. And in that, it's very easy to regulate. It's very easy to achieve. No longer being up into this imaginary headspace, and allow yourself to use the entire form of the mind which is found within your body. Grounded by your physical experience, fueled by your energetic experience. In that, the magnetism of your mind, so it's an amplifier, has something to work with that is bedrock, more granite-like solid. Because if the mind is magnetizing that which you see within the mind constantly without anything to anchor into, it's making everything go big. Does this make sense? No matter what it is, it could be the tiniest little something and it becomes big. But with the usage of the body and the breath, and it's already understood experience to the point of being second nature, it is constantly magnetizing that sensation. Sensations are good. Your sensory experience is so important, and we want to maintain the honing of that skill and begin to trust that which you feel over everything else, over everybody else. That which you feel is absolutely important. Why? Because you can trust it. So some of us need to go and backfill just a little bit of cleaning up. To maybe a lot of cleaning up. But space and time, this is non-local. Collapse it. Once you make the decision once, you've done it. That's official. And then it will bounce back again. Good. Do it again. It'll bounce back again. Good. Do it again. Challenge yourself if you want, softly and sweetly. Say 9 times only. It's only allowed to bounce 9 times. And then finished. But oftentimes what happens is it's cyclical. These are the bigger ones. And I'm not sure if you've ever noticed within your life, but you can almost time some of these cycles, like when your friend is going to get mad at you, or when you feel a certain way, insecure or challenged by something, and it goes in a 2-week cycle or a 1-month cycle, so it's a bit longer, like the yoga-like movement is big ones. And what we begin to recognize is the experience that is occurring as it meets you as the observer. We make the decision, yes or no, whether or not it's good for us. And if we say no, and if we choose not to buy into the story and go with it, then as it leaves the sphere of influence of this observer, and then inevitably comes back again, it's actually lighter because you've not bought into it or held on to it and integrated, so therefore you have space between you and that which you are observing. Now that exists. That's very real. So now once removed, you are literally, purely, solely the observer, watching it go by. And because you said no again, it's even that much more space, that much more untangible. And each time it goes around, it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter. And it keeps becoming lighter and more faint until it actually dissolves. Unless you say, psst, come here. I like you, let's work this out. There's something inside of you that is addictive. I like that sweetness, even though you're so mean. Right? And that's that thought that gets you. That's that emotion that flares up. Somewhere in there, there's almost like a power that can come from it. But it's not anchored. is like an island that we're attempting to create comfort around and find some place to plant these roots. It sounds like this is going to be a very easy exercise. Any questions?
How are you, Bhagavan?
How are you, good sir?
I'm well, thank you. I'm doing very well. Why am I here?
You're asking me?
No,
Mm-hmm.
it's rhetorical.
Okay.
And I know why I'm here because I have a purpose in mind.
Mm-hmm.
My mind, which is all this that you speak of, has a sense of direction.
Mm-hmm.
It says, you know what? There's this really amazing game going on the outside. It's really amazing and remarkable, but it's loosey-goosey sometimes, and it's not tangible, and it's not founded or, as you call it, grounded. So why am I here? Why do I want to learn to meditate?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I do yoga?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I meet with these wonderful, beautiful people?
Mm-hmm.
All these questions, I come to one answer, because there seems to be a truth that you speak of
Mm-hmm.
that seems to come through. A truth that I go, oh, yep, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
He's right. That guy, I'll leave the room and say, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
I had an experience in the last 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of those guys that kind of starts and finishes on my meditation. Start, stop. And it's really frustrating, but that's another story. But when I do meditate, beautiful. When I don't meditate, I beat myself up. Come
Mm-hmm.
on, George, get with the program. Right? I know. I'm beloved. I know.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll get to the point.
Yes.
Yes. I'll stop that one.
It's fine.
Okay. The point is, I had an experience over the last 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is fundamentally important. Should we want to take on a meditative practice, my observation is this: please take it on with sincerity and realize that you're gifted the time to do it. Because there may become a time when you physically cannot meditate. There may come a time when you physically have interruptions that will be so strong that you can't sit, and you will lose that possibility. So if you can sit now and strengthen your meditation now to such a point that if and when those times do come, should they do come, that even in those very difficult physical points of time, like a severe illness or something, you still have, as you speak of, an equanimity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I discovered this week.
Mm-hmm.
I had 7 days of interest in things go on that said, wow. And even today, in class, I'm like, wow, I have to leave the cough.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't stop it.
Yes.
And I didn't want to interrupt the class.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a testament that how important it is. I guess I'm making an observation, not a question.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for indulging me once again on a Wednesday. But yeah.
Well,
And you can expound on that observation if you don't mind.
I can expand on that observation. And that's a good observation to have. And what's really wonderful about the practice of meditation is, in fact, it is a technique that is actually strengthening you. And that you, which is strengthening, is constantly there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always present. So therefore, that access point to the space that you speak of is always there no matter what. Eyes open, eyes closed, walking, talking, sitting, smiling, whatever it may be. And then the technical time spent within meditation is cultivation, developing a depth of understanding of what that space is. So it's a returning back again and again and again and again and again and again and again to that quality of space. Eyes opened, eyes closed, eyes opened, eyes closed. So that over time, there becomes a really tough moment where you are unable to distinguish between a space of meditation, a quality space of meditation, and the quality of space that you experience on your day-to-day. Two are becoming one in the same. That's that whole concept of dynamic stillness. It is constant. Wherever you go, it is. And that's again part of the decision. We decide, this is our meditation time. I'm sitting and experiencing meditation. It went so deep, I feel so good. But then we say, okay, now I'm back into my world, and now there's no more meditation space. I'm feeling congested, I'm feeling tight, all of these things are coming towards me. But is that actually true? Is it coming towards you within this whole space-time frame that we are speaking of? Or is it that it's coming through and you're deciding that you're going to keep it? You're deciding you're going to indulge it. And as we gain the confidence, again, in oneself, we're then able to say, whoa, wait, no, actually, it is not. I am choosing that. And now I am saying no longer. And then this equanimity that you speak of begins to grow and always be present, no matter what it is that's happening, no matter what.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very, very well explained. So why am I here? I'm here because I believe that I really mastered the art of sleeping. And I really mastered the art of being awake. And I've mastered the art of making meals and eating them. And hanging out with friends and laughing and having good times. Now I want to master the art of this self-inquiry.
Yes, that's a good one.
And that's why I'm here. And I believe, even though a neophyte at this point, in time, with practice, and as you say, time is not linear. It could be an instant. I could be sitting one time and go, whoa, that Rameen got it. That's what he was talking about all these Wednesdays. And it would just hit me on the head like a skillet.
Yes, that's true. I'm sure it will happen like that.
Okay, I'll let you. Well, you'll see the big naughty thing when I come in. Thank you.
Hello, Rameen.
How are you?
I'm good. My name is Amber. I had some uncertainty about the question that I want to ask you, so if it's not appropriate for today, can you just let me know?
Yes.
And it's fine with me. So it's something that's very personal to you. But just to be completely honest, I've got so many questions around it, and it's like a real example. I'm wondering about your skiing accident. And I'm wondering, I gather that you wouldn't consider that an accident. So I'm guessing either something that you put there for yourself in order to have the chance to see how you would, play with that, or that it's coming from some kind of a higher self placing challenges in front of you, and that doesn't feel quite as right to me. And then this, I'll let you answer that. And the second part of my question, Ashley, let's start with that.
Sure. I actually do consider it to be an accident. Yeah, in its sort of generally accepted way. The way that it happened was, in a sense, a lapse in consciousness in that moment based upon a multitude of factors. And those factors were at that moment in time out of my control. So an icy spot, a mogul, an edge, which got caught on that mogul, which then twisted the bone right off. So in that, it was an accident in its understood field. Now, the moment that happened after that was an opportunity for me to decide what I was going to do with it. And I gave one good strong scream into the snow, strong. Closed my eyes, took a few deep breaths, and then decided that I was going to flip my snowboard around. So I did that. With this much of my 8 inches, I don't know how many centimeters that is, but a large part of my leg basically shattered, gone. And I was in denial. I didn't believe that it was broken. And so I decided again that I was going to try to stand up. And I could not. I did, but it was like a bag of bones in there. So I sat back down, and then I made another decision that I was just going to get to the hospital. And the truth of it is that through all of that, there was actually no pain. The pain that I felt was when the brake was seeking for somewhere to go. The pressure was seeking for somewhere to go. And as soon as that pressure was released, there was no pain associated to the experience from that point onwards. There was intensity, but no pain. And I believe the reason for that was because of the chemicals running through my body so efficiently. The endorphins, or the adrenaline, I should say. And in terms of the higher self that you're speaking of, most definitely, I saw crystal clarity. The moment that I heard the actual snap, there was the clearest of vision which occurred. And that I don't mind sharing, but I'm not able to share now because that's a working project for me. So if something is in work, then I generally will not share it, just because it's very incubated, and working right now.
Thank you. The second part of my question was after the fact, if you had any learning regarding that, any learning around it that's helpful to people, helpful to us when we go through things that seem out of our control.
Yes, and probably the most important piece is to really recognize that you are in the driver's seat of your own experience. I have yet to see any negativity exist within my experience. And on the healing front, I am very focused on developing the movement of the body again, just in its own natural patterning. There's actually nothing wrong with my leg on a cellular level. Everything is fine, it's intact. So now it's just remembering back again where it was in its optimal experience. So we have to allow that to occur. And basically the whole conversation which we had leading up to this moment in time would be completely applicable to what was happening with my leg. So there's nothing actually wrong with it, other than it went through an experience, and now through the experience gaining knowledge and wisdom. The last thing is that yoga is very good for you. It is really very, very good for you because the rate of healing increases exponentially because of a host of factors. But what probably gave me the most difference and the greatest edge towards healing is the concept of integrative action lines and lines of awareness. because then the next day after my surgery, I was working these very specific patterns within the body to bring life back into the movement. Yes.
So using visualization and intention
Exactly.
to help with the healing.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
You're
all I
very
had.
welcome.
I appreciate you answering such a personal question.
You're welcome. And lastly, if something does come up, like if you are upset or if you do get depressed and if you do get angry because of whatever happens to your body, that's also okay. Because you have to go through it. But just recognize it as the observer if you can, not as the experiencer, the one who's actually in it. Because are you in it? Well, that's your choice, I guess. Yeah, it can be both. You're welcome. Any last questions?
So, you referred to effectively, I suppose I would phrase it, giving something up. You know, it comes towards you and you're allowed to come 9 times, or maybe that cycle repeats and repeats. And in the collapsing of space and time, in my experience, that time is expanded within space in terms of, say, incidences within childhood that have only occurred over a few short years, but have shaped my personality for the rest of my life. And when I say personality, I mean insecurities and self-belief or lack of self-belief and that sort of thing. As one starts to give that up, where does the grounding hold the self? You know, the idea that as you start to as one starts to let go of those ideas, who is the person that's left?
That's a good question. The personality of the individual still exists. And it's the personality that is actually holding and identifying and creating the world, the cadence of language and the attitude and all of that comes from it. So that personality still will be intact. And deeper than that, that authentic self that I think that you're speaking of also is constantly there as the deeper well of the experience, the one that has already let go, and in fact is just waiting for the personality to create alignment with this authenticity of self.
My experience with windows of coming to this place, you know, touching on what you speak of, is often has been offset by a euphoria that has led to sometimes poor decisions in a way, like complete lack of grounding. So is there a balance point, you know?
There is a balance point. Yeah. And the grounding piece, it's impossible to find true authentic grounding in anything that is constructed through the variable, so that which is not constant. So what we must connect to as a ground is into experiences that are constant, which surpass any variable that can come to you, meaning a personality, a thought, an emotion that's coming and going. These are just coming and going as visitations, like ghosts in space. And we anchor ourselves into the constant. But we have to understand what is that constant. So to understand what is constant, we must go to a known place. And from my perspective, the absolute known place for you, even more than one's mind, is your physical experience of body and the sensations that it holds. So where within the experience of your body do you find a constant? So in the plethora of sensation that you feel, all of those threads, what is the thread that is the base? And I encourage you to find that base of thread. And then the second constant, which absolutely happens all of the time, is your breathing. So then make that your practice, consciously breathing into that thread of sensation and make it stronger. And then the mind will just gravitate towards that naturally because you decided that that is your working grounding base. Can change and evolve, but it is the working grounding base for now. And then that is what enables you to move past all of the old patterning. You must decide that it's no longer needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We must decide that it's no longer needed, which is challenging because there's a little bit of an addiction there. You like it. It's okay. I like it too. But eventually you won't. And at that moment in time, you have the tools to ready yourself, then to let it go. Collapse that space-time thing. Collapse it. And then start again. And don't worry about other people holding you to things, especially family. Ooh, that's a whole nother story. Let it be known that this is what's up and this is what you're doing, period. And then allow them the space to adjust. Friends, same way. Work, same way. Because I know that that's a holding point for so many people. They make a decision and they go to their friends or their family and then it just unravels. And then they say, who cares? I'm just the way I am. But then it creeps back up again. So because it keeps coming back again and again and again, there's something there. So we should really full force, head on, take it and do that. Any final questions? Okay, let's close our eyes. Keeping the eyes closed, let's bring full, deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze into the space just there in front of you. And with a soft intensity, we can maintain the integrity of the space so that it is uninterrupted by any thought. Starting now. Keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And very slowly, very, very gently, allow the eyes to open. What you just experienced is your inner landscape. The way that you experience it is how you have decided to experience it. And I know that sometimes that's really an interesting thought to have, that, the way that this is because I am choosing it. But you as the individual choose constantly what an object is, what it means to you, how important it is, whether you like it or not. It is always based upon you as the decision maker. But this point of object which one observes is not just outside. It goes all the way back into the point where you can no longer observe something because you are just simply the self, experiencing the self, having the experience. And until that point, there is always an object that you are observing that you will decide, what is that? What does it mean? And what is the state that I will then experience it through? That's the whole idea of becoming conscious. The more conscious we are, the more we actually have to work with. So your yoga practice, your meditation, is giving you that ability. You just became more conscious of your inner landscape sitting here for the past 20 minutes. Now you're aware, and now you're more equipped to make really good decisions based upon what you choose. Is important. So easy. And then we just enjoy. When it's a bad day, it's like, wow, what to do? The good news is that in dynamic stillness, it is always blue sky, as they say. And that's true. And that's something that we can go back to again and again and again and again and again. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you next week.